And we are live. Here we are. And welcome everyone to another edition of the Spoiler Room, a special, somewhat impromptu, maybe a little bit, broadcast here of, you know, whoa, what's this? Oh, what? Oh, go watch. What? It's not. Oh, we are not on everything. Well, that's disappointing. Looks like Facebook is fighting me on this. Uh, that's mean. That's just mean. But anyway, here we are. On a couple of channels anyway. And yeah, hello, Mr. Andrew Shearer. He's with us. This is our 10th anniversary. So this is already going as expected. Uh, how you doing, sir?
I'm good,
Uh,
Mark. I just wanted to come in and say happy 10th anniversary to the spoiler room.
well, thank you. I do appreciate that. Yeah, 10 years. I never expected it I never expected it to be this long doing this.
So
It's been
2013.
Mhm.
Did we know each other in 2013?
No, I don't think we did actually. We met through our mutual friend podcasting with Mr. Derek Carey.
That's right. So
Yeah, I met
I
you
wasn't
through
around.
Mis yeah, I met you through Derek Carey. So you weren't around for the very beginning, but you have been a regular staple here
I
on the Spoiler Room, helping
did.
adding adding your lovely perspective, which
Thank you.
I've always appreciated.
Oh, well, thank you.
Uh, you're just you're one of the many wonderful people I've had a chance to meet and have had be part of the group over the years.
Oh,
And
likewise, Mark.
you know,
Likewise, sir.
you
I
know,
I figured if I hadn't been there since the beginning, I had to have gotten on maybe in year 2 or something like that.
yeah, no, you were still here early on. Absolutely, yeah. You were definitely here early on. Um, but yeah, give me just one moment here, folks. This thing, I tell you, technology likes
I
to
didn't
fight.
do it.
No, you didn't do it. You did not do it. No. Facebook did it. But
Mm.
anyway, well, I have posted another link on the Facebook. People can follow that one. But yeah, so
Well, what was the first spoiler room like? Do you remember?
oh yeah, we did the first spoiler room. The first spoiler room was done on Google Hangouts at the
Okay.
time. Because yeah, it was on Google Hangouts and uh it was just a fluke. I had been on another podcast, a couple of other podcasts at the time, and I kind of got the bug, and I just wanted to see if I could do it. Um, and yeah, I enjoyed it, and with Google Hangouts, it was far more of a challenge than what we've got going on here tonight,
Sure.
with one of our sources, but it was interesting. In those first few years, especially, I was still kind of feeling out how I was going to do this show, which has definitely evolved over the years. Some of those folks we used to have regularly on can only make it occasionally, but we've got new, fresh faces. You got to evolve, I think, with a show. You can't just continually stay with the same thing because times change, technology changes, options change
True.
as you go along.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't know if I ever asked you this, Mark.
Mm.
Where did the name Spoiler Room come from?
Well, as a play on the Boiler Room, actually, the first logo that I did for the Spoiler Room is was a silhouette of Freddy
Ah,
and in the boiler room type of area, and um yeah, and that was what the first logo was. But I realized, well, if I want to kind of do this more legitimately, I need my own concept
right.
to come up with, right? Outside of using that. But the spoiler room was just a play on the boiler room, is basically down in the basement type of thing, discussions like that. And yeah, that's where the name came from. What's funny is after when I started doing the spoiler room about a year or two later, there was another spoiler room show.
Really?
There was a Spoiler Room show, but it didn't last too long. Yeah, so that surprised me, but no one ever contacted me saying, "Hey, you're infringing on whatever,"
No.
and and whatnot. So I'm like, okay, but yeah, that's where it came from, and it's called Spoiler Room because I wanted to do in-depth discussions on films, not just your high-level like non-spoilery reviews, and that's what the show did. I streamlined it, got more experienced over the years, but yeah, that's where the Spoiler Room came from. Basically, is just a play on Boiler Room. Is what it initially was.
So on the Spoiler Room, is this the one that you interview guests on, or is it the Final Cut?
No, I interview guests as part of the Spoiler Room.
So who was the first?
Well, the actual first was, I do believe it was Catherine Mary Stewart was the first one.
I knew that.
The first one. Yes, the first one was Miss Catherine Mary Stewart. And that kind of opened the door, because where that sparked from is I decided, and of course this was 2014 when I started it. No, it was 2015, I think, is when I started the special series of podcasts, because the first couple of years I didn't do a whole lot of Spoiler Room episodes. They were very sporadic. It just when there was time or whatnot. But I decided to do a special series. That was the first one, the 25th anniversary, films celebrating their 25th anniversary, which was ended up being films from 1990. I think it was, or was it? Yeah. And I forgot which film it was that I was interviewing her for, but offhand, it's been 10 years, man.
It doesn't matter. It's Catherine Mary Stewart.
It's Catherine Mary Stewart. So yeah. But yeah, so she was the first interview we did on the Spoiler Room, though.
She came back, right?
And she came back. She's one that we've interviewed. I've interviewed her for that. I interviewed her for Nighthawks and The Apple. So I've interviewed Catherine Mary Stewart 3 times now.
Wow. I think something's going on more than just, you know what I mean?
With me or with her?
I don't know. Mark, you tell me, or don't tell me. Leave it a mystery.
I leave it a mystery. We do have a BFD joining us as well, I think. Are you here with us, Glenn? And there he is, folks. Here in the Spoiler Room is none other than the BFD, Mr. Glenn Bittner, one of the OG Spoiler Room members. Hello, how are you, Biff?
I'm doing great. Great to be here. Long-time caller, never listener.
And in our chat, we just got to pull over real quick. We've got the Horror Miser, Monty G, is with us. He says, "Sup, everyone," and he called you. It's Ric Flair, the Ric Flair entry. So there you go.
Woo!
Woo! Yeah. But Andrew here was trying to was helping me try to dig through my archive of memories of early starts of the Spoiler Room and my first interview, which was Catherine Mary Stewart. That year, though, I also interviewed Patty Mullen of Frankenhooker fame.
Yeah.
And I actually got to interview Fred Olen Ray, which is another interview. I'd love to talk to Fred again sometime. I haven't reached out again just because it was early on for my interviewing through a podcast, and of course a little bit of intimidation as well. So I ended up cutting the interview short, I think, just when things were starting to get going with talking to him. But I remember with Fred, it was funny because he asked me a question first. It basically was because again, this was part of that same year where I was trying to do an interview with someone involved with the episode, the movie that was part of the special series, you know. And with Fred, when I asked him, for the interview and that, the first thing he agreed to it, and then the first question out of his mouth was, "Why do you want to talk about this film?"
Oh,
In a good way. I think because especially we're talking 9 or 8 years now, ago when I was starting to actually do interviews.
Hmm.
I think he was kind of questioning why, because it wasn't his normal. We were talking Bad Girls from Mars.
oh, I love that movie.
Yeah, we talked Bad Girls from Mars, and I think he was trying to get a feel of what I was going to do, why I wanted to talk about Bad Girls from Mars, because not everybody talks about that film. So I was
Sure.
wondering, I think he was maybe feeling out, trying to see if maybe I was doing this as a joke, or
Oh,
you know what I mean, because
yeah.
of the type of film it was. But when he realized that I was being serious in my interview, things seemed to loosen up a bit. And yeah, so that I remember that one, and then we ended up cutting it off because just as I was ending it, he told me about how he used the same camera technique for 2 different films, the exact same thing, and he was just getting into it. And then we ended it. And then after I was done, I was like, "Oh man, I screwed that up probably."
I wouldn't
But
say so. Although I do want to mention, Glenn, it is wonderful to be on a podcast with you again, sir.
I was gonna say it's been a while since you two
Yeah,
have been on
it
the
has
same
been.
podcast.
Come on, let's be honest. What's the OG spoiler room crew? It's not going to hurt anybody's feelings,
Well, we
including
had
me if I'm not one of the names, but Glenn
you.
is definitely.
Glenn is definitely one of those who's been here since the beginning. We did have Ray, Mr. Ray Sidman, was one of the
Yeah.
originals. Dawn, the diva of the spoiler room,
Oh
was
man,
one of the originals as well.
where's Dawn?
She's probably busy tonight, so
I mean,
uh,
but Sunday was her wedding anniversary, so
yeah, we had trivia this past weekend,
Oh,
so
right.
that can take a bit out of you, So I'm barely keeping it together.
That's
But
all right. Dawn knows how I feel.
but yeah, so it was Ray, Dawn,
Chong.
Glenn.
Yeah.
Soon after, we also had Scotty D as a regular on
Mhm.
the show. So, but you
Well,
came on.
Andrew, you did come up this weekend as well.
Uh-oh, what happened?
Oh yeah.
Because I failed at Mark's test of these ridiculous trivia stills.
No.
Unreal what they do to
It
people.
was I was talking about, we were talking about pearls of wisdom people have given us,
Oh,
and I relayed one of the best ones you've ever given. Well, one of the best ones I've ever received, which was from you, which
uh-oh.
was, when life gives you lemons, Blackula.
Just as true today as it ever was.
That is some of the best advice out there. Yes, exactly.
I can't believe I said that, let alone someone remembered that I said that. Thank you,
I will
Glenn.
never forget that.
Thank you.
How can you not forget a gem like that? And
You know,
I mean
I
that.
did.
I mean that seriously. But yeah,
Thanks.
we had also had a gentleman, Joe Caldwell, who I met.
Yeah.
He was on for a number of episodes. And Andrew, you
Was-
actually,
yeah.
you know what? I take it back. I apologize, Andrew. You could be considered one of the OGs.
I
on
wasn't
here.
looking for that. I did
So,
want to
but-
share one of my favorite episodes that we did.
Mhm.
Tony
Yeah, Tony
Yeah.
Estrada.
Tony Estrada. I made him laugh so hard that I completely lost track of what I was doing. And I don't think I meant to. I did a fake Southern accent, which, I'm from the South. And so, I'm okay at it. Tony just really, but one of my favorite discussions that we had was of this movie Rock and Rule.
Oh yeah.
I'll remember
Mhm. Mhm.
Not necessarily the episode, but I don't know. It just it's one of those things where, as time goes on, we lose things in our memory, childhood things, phone numbers, addresses. But for some reason, the rock and roll episode sticks out as one of the times I had a great time, and I don't tend to listen back to myself of
Sure,
anything.
sure.
But that one I remembered for some reason, just being a wonderful discussion where like everyone was hilarious except
Oh,
me.
oh yeah, no, that one went really well. That was very entertaining. That was one of our animation episodes. In fact, we had someone who joined our iTunes channel specifically for our animation month.
Nice. Glenn, do you have a
So,
favorite episode, man, that you could remember? Or a favorite film we discussed?
Oh man, I don't know. So much of it blends together because I mean, back in those days, I was doing this podcast, I was doing the Adventure Party podcast, I was doing
right.
Astro Radio Z.
Yeah.
Boy, a favorite. I don't know, man.
Or maybe someone
There's
that
been
you
a
hated.
lot
I
of good
don't know.
ones.
Yeah, a
I
person
mean,
you
I
couldn't
hated
stand.
most people. And
Yeah.
So
Glenn's old entrance music was this.
yeah. Glenn has definitely is the master of the sigh. So much is said with so little. It is a beautiful thing.
We know because podcasters and every
there it is. There it is.
We tend to want to we don't want any dead air or whatever. So we'd be talking all the different heads. And then you go to Glenn and there would just be a pause and then the sigh. And then you'd get just pearl after pearl, wonderful things.
Definitely wonderful things for Mr. Bittner. The diversity that we've had in our show of different peoples and stuff over the years has been very, very much welcome. I remember us talking about Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, Andrew. That was always an interesting conversation. Talking about all the apes of the Planet of the Apes. Yeah.
Dawn of the Planet of the Apes.
Yeah.
Was Dawn on that one?
I don't remember if Dawn was on the Dawn of the
Planet. A missed opportunity, Dawn.
That was actually a missed opportunity.
What was Dawn of the Planet of the Apes? That was the one with Franco?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, I remember the discussion barely.
No, that's okay. It's
and the movie maybe slightly more, but I remember. Well, Planet of the Apes is my favorite movie franchise of all time.
Oh, well, there you go. Hey, that leads right into why we're also talking today. Not only 10th anniversary, but talking favorite film franchises. So,
is that
series, film series? Yeah, that's also part of the discussion tonight, if you want.
Okay.
So,
what's yours, Mark?
I've been trying to think on it because I've watched.
Okay, we're gonna go to Glenn. Glenn, what's your favorite franchise?
My favorite franchise.
And you
or
can't
series, or series of movies.
Popeyes is my favorite.
Yeah. What was that?
It's Popeyes. As far as chicken sandwiches go, Popeyes is my favorite.
Popeyes is good.
Popeyes is good, man. I don't know if I can top Popeyes.
Thank you.
Popeyes.
But I think we're talking film franchises here.
So
okay. Or film series, or franchise. I guess that'd be a franchise.
I think for me, it's probably the Mad Max series.
Ooh, good choice. Why? What is it about that series? Is it its rawness? Is it?
I hate the Earth, and I think it should end. No, Mad Max, the original Mad Max is like one of the first, like really kind of gritty type movies I saw, and that was the one that really opened up the door for me to all of the post-apocalyptic stuff.
Sure.
I mean, because that led down the road of like all of the all the Western, not Western, Italian post-apocalyptic movies.
Yeah.
What was that horrible one with the big truck they were driving across country with Jan Michael Vincent?
Oh, I know what you're talking
Oh, you're
about.
talking about Damnation Alley.
Yeah,
Damnation Alley.
Damnation Alley.
Can
I
see the
love
poster.
Damnation Alley. The
Oh,
man-eating
I love it too, but
cockroaches.
it's terrible.
Oh,
Yes,
it is. No, it's
the
awful.
man-eating
It's-
cockroaches, which will kill you if you just sit still in a car and let them kill you.
Oh my god.
I love Damnation Alley. That film is, and what's great, what I love about Damnation Alley is like the world, because of the nukes, it threw the earth off axis. But if they could just make it to Canada, if they just make it through Damnation Alley to Canada, Canada's okay. After 25 years, Canada is fine. There's desert and wasteland in the US, but you get across the Great Lakes, it's like, just fields of grass and all kinds of wonderful things.
That's great.
That's just common sense.
Yeah, it is. It is. That's Canada. And Horror Miser, congrats on 10 years. Thank you, Horror Miser Monty G. Folks, check out Horror Miser Monty G's channel. He's got a great channel there, a wonderful group of horror fans up there, and he does some great reviews. And one of the many people I've gotten a chance to meet over the years doing this crazy podcasting thing. So we met, if I remember correctly, it was through doing the horror horathon. There was a horror-a-thon going on with YouTube channels. Each hour did a different movie discussion, and it was like they did a playlist, and you could do a live stream, and then they were all on the same playlist, and it was all part of I believe it was a fundraiser, if I remember correctly. It's been a while again, dealing with trivia fog. I apologize, but we met, I believe, through that, and great channel for Horror Miser Monty G. Got to check him out, folks. But yeah, no, Mad Max is, Mad Max Fury Road is still probably my favorite, one of my top favorite action films of the last, not even decade, even more than a decade. I'd say 15 years. I love me some Mad Max Fury Road.
I am going to have to make haste here to get my kid to bed. Her birthday's tomorrow.
Birthday tomorrow. Happy birthday to the
10-year-old
one.
10 years old.
10 years old. And
we're successfully kept a child alive with help.
With help, obviously. Yeah. Well, no, I thank you for popping in, Mr.
Sure. I do want to do a plug for my movie Jugsaw.
Awesome.
Yeah, the latest from Gonzorific here in Athens,
that is
Georgia.
Awesome.
Jugsaw. I don't know if the people listening to this will be able to see this on video or not, but if you can't, that's your loss.
Where could they get that wonderful film with that wonderful cover?
Yeah. So if you like burlesque, roller derby, punk rock, B movies, all this type of stuff, cleavage, and you will want Jugsaw as our current mixtape, available at gonzorific.com, GONZORIFFIC. And this will be supporting what we do here, which is feminist underground cinema. And the movies on this mixtape include Three Hole Punch, Haunted Hotcakes, The Boogie Woman, Granny Panties, A Mime Died at the Mall, and many more.
Are those some of your more recent ones, or
these are, some of them were made during COVID, but this is all 2021, mostly 2021 and some 2022 stuff on here. But the disc has audio commentary, tons of little bonus features, and even has when we did our live stream, D Flowered and I sitting in the theater. It's got all that footage as well.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, this is stuff that hasn't been seen in a long time. Anyway, people ask me if this movie is streaming. It is not. This is purely for the collector's market. This is a limited edition disc, and we've got maybe about 15 left. So, if you want to, check it out.
You
Motherfuckers.
you mean you're gonna have 14 left as Glenn orders one? No, just kidding.
That is actually what I am doing right now.
I knew it.
Glenn, I'm almost out of envelopes. I should note, though, everybody that orders one right now will get 2 Gonzorific stickers.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, one of the classic logo by Lauren Benbrook with the Starbuck lady with the bird fingers and the devil horns and the nude chest. And the other is this bizarre AI-created Marilyn Monroe cyborg. It looks like Anna Nicole Smith and H.R. Giger had a baby. You'll enjoy. That's for you. Metalheads out there or whatever it is.
That is awesome.
But yeah, always a pleasure, Mark. As you know, we spent many a late night together on this podcast. I could sit here and talk to the both of you, Glenn, for several hours and have done so in the past.
We have.
So
Yes.
it is my honor to be part of your 10th anniversary, Mark, and I wish
thank
you 10 more.
Probably. I'll just, as long as we keep having at least one person watch, yeah, we'll be around.
All
And
right.
look, as one is leaving, we have one coming in, Mr. Monty G.
Morning. Hey, what am I talking about? Morning. It shows how tired I am.
All right. My shift is over. Monty, good to see you again, sir.
Good to see you again.
Take care, Andrew. Hey, Monty, how you doing, sir?
Doing fine. Yes, wanted to stop on by for a few moments. Congratulate you on 10 years. Been
Thank you, sir.
Great 10 years.
It has been. And that is when we first met, wasn't it? On that first horror stream?
Yeah,
yeah.
I think it was. Yeah, it was the first. Yeah, because I think you invited me to come on the podcast.
Right. Yep.
Yeah,
because I was part of the group and have you on because you're our similar tastes in cinema.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's great to have you on here, sir. So we're talking favorite series, also not just reminiscing here. And what's your favorite series for the Horror Miser?
Oh, well, it's Freddy.
Well, there you go. Nightmare at Elm Street.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, on our next month on the Horror Hangout live stream, we're going to be talking about Freddy.
Oh, nice. Oh, yeah. Which one? Just the whole franchise? Or?
Yeah, the whole franchise, yes.
So your thoughts on that remake that they did?
Ooh. And that's kind of the same reaction when I was when Knight and I did the Deadly Venoms, and we talked about he talked about Exorcist 2, The Heretic. I had the same reaction. I said, oh, they all cracked up laughing.
Yeah, The Exorcist 2 is something.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
It's like this. It's not the worst movie I've seen. They had some decent ideas. I think was it Kate Mara? Was that Kate Mara? Or was her sister that was in
I think it was Kate Mara.
Yeah, I heard Kate Mara didn't enjoy being in the film. You could see it in her performance. I have nothing against Jackie Earle Haley. I thought he did a fantastic job. He decided to put his own spin on Freddy. He didn't do any crazy one-liners. I thought the practical effects was a bit off. I know they tried to make him look more like a burnt victim because that's what they were going for, and I felt it kind of looked off. I don't know if it's because we're so used to how they do the makeup job with Robert Englund, but I had no problem with his performance. I thought he did a pretty good job. It's just the fact they were missing something, and they actually could have, and I blame the writers for this because they actually could have, because I thought they were going for where they might say that Freddy was molesting the kids, but they turned out the kids were a lie, and they killed them for nothing. That's what I thought. I thought they were going with that. That would have been better. But then they stuck with when he was a child killer. I said, "Oh, come on, that would have been great."
Well, I mean, that's what my feeling is on remakes, and actually, that leads right back to the very first episode we ever did of the Spoiler Room, where we talked reboots and remakes and sequels and such, and yeah, if you're going to do a remake, I want to see something new to the party, good or bad. I want to see something new to the party. And you're right, that would have probably made it more interesting, at least. But yeah, I didn't quite care for the new the Nightmare with Jack Earle Haley. They tried, but
Yeah, they
Um,
tried. It's not the worst remake I've seen, but it's like, they just I think was Kate Mara was miscast,
mhm.
and because ever since that time she doesn't want to do horror again. I mean,
Yeah, that tells you
boy,
something, right? What about you, Glenn? Have you seen the remake of Nightmare on Elm Street?
I have not.
Mhm. And he doesn't care to.
I probably will eventually, but
Yeah.
it was never high on my list. So
Mhm.
I'm always I'm always dubious about remakes.
Sure.
Um, I don't not to say that I don't think they can be good, but it just
More times than not, they aren't.
that
yeah,
that has been my experience generally. But
Mhm.
my time is getting more precious the older I get. So I focus my attention where I think I'm gonna get the best payback.
Sure. Sure.
yeah. No, and my thing with remakes, is that's what Hollywood's going to go for because they always think there's a new generation of viewers, and we haven't had, it's been a while since, come on now, they're talking about doing a reboot of Harry Potter already.
Yeah. I mean, I see a benefit in the remakes as well because especially for some franchises that are really old,
Mhm.
Mhm.
and it opens that back up to a new audience who will see the remake, and some of them will go, "Oh, this is a remake," and they'll go and they'll find that original, and that might lead them to finding other classic
Mhm.
cinema as well.
Sure.
So, I mean, I see the benefit of that because, like, some of the horror, especially with horror, some of the stuff that came out in like the 70s and the 80s, it did not age well.
No.
No,
No.
no,
And I
oh
can
yeah.
go back. I mean, I can go back and watch it because I have that bit of nostalgia for it. But
Mhm.
like, uh, a 20-year-old today going back and watching some of the stuff from back then would not play out the same way.
No. Well, that's why I say that one of my favorite remakes for horror films was The Crazies, because you took a film that was done on a very limited budget, and they took the story and they gave you a different perspective with the budget, but it still felt like it was in the same world. It was just a bit of an update, and they added stuff to it, and that's one of the better remakes for me, horror remakes that they've ever come out with, because they took a low budget cult film, they put money behind it, but they still kept that spirit of it. And up until the last 5 minutes of that film, I love that movie. The last 5 minutes, I'm like, okay, that's just a producer going, we got to leave it open for a sequel. And you're just like, no, no.
Uh,
And joining us as well as Mr. Ian Simmons.
Hey, Ian.
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, that's the only thing I had with the Friday the 13th remake was that everything was decent about it until that oh boy, here we go. We gotta do this again. It's like, can't we just end the film without trying to make it another remake? We don't need that. Just end the film.
Yeah, I was surprised with the Friday the 13th remake how much, elements they put in from the original series, the exploitation factor and such in there considering of when it was made. I was like, okay, that's you know what? That's very cool that they did it that way. They kept it, even though it was a amalgamation of the first three films, they tried. I like that one over the Nightmare on Elm Street remake. Um, yeah. Ian,
Yeah,
Ian
that was bad.
that, that was not good. No. Which Nightmare on Elm Street? I know it's a little late for you, Monty, but which Nightmare on Elm Street out of the series is your favorite?
The third one,
The
Dream
third one.
Warriors. Yeah, Dream Warriors. When it comes to Freddy, I think that kind of established Freddy as an icon. He started his one-liners in that particular one. You had Nancy's back, Heather's back. She's back in the film. Heather Langenkamp, she's back in the film. We have the Warriors in the film right there. I think that's really brought Freddy out. Unfortunately, it also did away with his I'm pretty sure Wes Craven was disappointed because he lost his effectiveness as a true
Scary.
horror.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he's real scary in the first and second film, but this one you can see it's starting to move away from that, and that really happens obviously in Dream Master, but it was Dream Warriors that started it all.
Yeah, I dig Dream Warriors. I think that's one of my favorite. What about you, Ian? You like Dream Warriors?
Yeah, I mean that was kind of my Freddy. I mean, I was a big fan of Dream Master as well, but it could, yeah, Dream Warriors still had that kind of fantasy element to it with the horror, and then by the time you get to Dream Master, it's pretty much all fantasy with more jokey setups like, "Oh, Rick, you little meatball." Um, but yeah, I mean,
Soul food. Yeah.
right. But the thing that makes Dream Warrior so special is it takes, Freddy just could have been another slasher
Mhm.
franchise with the kind of the dream element to it, but they really opened it up story wise and said, like, what would these kids be like, a generation or two removed from the Elm Street parents, like, really? And all their friends are dying, and it looks like suicide, so they kind of have to band together, and they're all in an institution. Yeah, it's about some real life stuff, and then you mix in this crazy psychology of Freddy and dying in your dreams, and yeah, I don't know, it felt like the series kind of grew up, even though from then on it sort of became more immature. I mean, by the time we get to Freddy's Dead and he's
Oof.
riding around on the witch's broomstick, I'm like, what are you doing here?
I will defend Freddy's Dead until I'm no
Go ahead.
longer on this planet.
Hey, if you ever question when you were supposed to put the 3D glasses on with Freddy's Dead, just watch it. They will literally tell you when to put the 3D glasses on because they put the 3D glasses on.
Now talk about now see, here's where the aging comes in when it comes to Friday the 13th 3D and Freddy's Dead. The 3D, the transfer of that is terrible. It's terrible.
Yeah.
It was okay when you as far as Friday the 13th 3D, even though you still had those bad paper glass 3Ds, it was very effective. Even Freddy's Dead, when you come to Freddy Vision, it's still kind of effective, but unfortunately the transfer of that is terrible.
It doesn't work too well. And Metallica is my life. We're gonna get to your comments, but I just want to get Glenn's feeling on Freddy, what his favorite Freddy is, if he likes Dream Warriors.
Dream Warriors has a scene that has stuck with me since I first saw it, and it's the you want to get high together with the little medals in her arm. That is one of my favorite scenes from a horror film.
Mhm.
So yeah, if I had to pick one, yeah, it would be Dream Warriors.
Yeah, well, Dream Warriors, even though it was a bit fun, Freddy, he still had more of the creepy, scary feel to it. They had that nice blend in 3. And then as it went on until you get to New Nightmare, it kind of detached that to the point where you've got the power glove. You're just like, on one hand, you love it because it's funny. On the other hand, you're like, wait, this is a horror movie. That's right.
Yeah, because at the time Nintendo came out with the Power Glove, and they thought that was going to catch on, but it turned out to be a big one of the few mistakes Nintendo made.
Well, it's fitting because it turned out to be a nightmare for Nintendo.
Thanks. You just gave me flashbacks to The Wizard and the movie that was whole purpose was to promote the Power Glove and Super Mario Brothers 3. That was the entire purpose of that entire movie.
Merchandising.
We do have some comments here. Metallica is my life has joined in. Metallica is my life 213. Happy 10 years, Mark. What is everyone's best and least favorite installment in one of their movie franchises? Well, we've hit one here with Freddy's with Dream Warriors with Monty. Monty, what's your least favorite?
The Dream Child.
Dream Child.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah. That one gets a bit rough. I would say it. And Glenn, how about you with your Road Warrior series? What was your best and worst?
Well, worst is Beyond Thunderdome for me. I mean, I don't hate it. I don't dislike it. It's just of the 4, it's my least favorite.
Sure.
It went a little too camp, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And my favorite would have to now be Fury Road.
Yeah.
For a long time, The Road Warrior was one of my absolute all-time favorite movies, but man, Fury Road is just it's just an absolute work of cinematography, cinematic graphic. cinema art. We'll just say that.
There we go. Cinema art.
Yeah.
Shima.
Did you guys ever see the black and chrome edition they did of that?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I didn't
It
even know
worked.
I didn't know they made an edition like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there was a Blu-ray release to where you could watch it in color or you could watch it in black and white.
Mhm.
And watching it in black and white, it still works. It works well.
See, I disagree. I think
No?
I saw it at the Music Box had like a big screen presentation when it first came out before it hit video. I was like, oh, because I love the the colored version. I went and I saw it. I'm like, it made me appreciate just how important color is to Fury Road, because you think about it, oh, it's just out in the desert and it's all sand and it's basically monochromatic. It's not true. Like when you watch that initial sandstorm, there's so much color and vibrance going on that just gets completely wiped out when you turn that into grayscale. So I mean, for me, it was an interesting experiment, but I'm never going to watch it again. I'll go back to the Fury Road. I like that it's out there and that he had wanted to do that initially. I respect that vision, but yeah, the color palette on Fury Road is just bonkers.
One of the great things with Fury Road that I liked is just this type of sequel or whatnot that as part of a franchise, there's such a distance, and it's like a new generation discovering Mad Max, and it happened to be a good film. It's like because we get some of these legacy movies, and you're just like Halloween, where you're just like what you're like, this is painful to watch, and then you get Fury Road where you're just like, oh my God, this is awesome. How did you manage this? And I love seeing the behind the scenes later to where they show how he specifically made sure everything was always in the center of the camera with the action. And you don't realize that how much of an effect that had, but it totally gives you that interesting just experience that you have them in the middle, the action in the middle all the time. And yeah, and the fact that it was based off of storyboards first, I know it frustrated the actors, but at the same time, it's like, it's a wonderful action piece that really, it just made me excited for the series. I watched the other films again. I think we did that on the podcast. We watched them leading up to Fury Road as well. All three films. And yeah, it's interesting. Thunderdome has a good soundtrack. I got it on vinyl. That's the part that I like about it, because can't go wrong with Tina Turner.
No.
As a movie, it makes a great record.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
What about you, Mr. Ian Simmons? Your franchise, and what's your least and best installment?
Before Ian goes, I got to pop off.
Okay.
I had a prior commitment tonight, so
Yeah,
I'm
no
glad I
problem.
got to stop in.
Mhm.
Say
Yes.
congrats on 10 years, Mark.
Thank you,
hoping
sir.
For 30 more.
30 more.
30 more.
I'll be podcasting from my nursing home.
I'm looking forward to Mark the Hollow movie man.
Nice.
It was great seeing you, Glenn.
All right,
Good
Glenn.
night, everyone.
Thanks, Glenn. Appreciate it. So Mr. Simmons, your favorite series, and what's your best and least favorite of that series?
It's the thing is, I started thinking about my favorite series about a half hour ago, because I'm like, oh, I just gotta pick one. It's so hard.
It is hard, right?
Because what defines a series? Because I was thinking Tarantino movies are kind of in their own universe, but they're not really a series.
No.
So I'm gonna have
It's
to go with the
Yeah, they're like its own individual films.
Yeah.
right, but
in
they
the
do have these little ties to each other. Character names will call back to something that was 3 movies ago. But yeah, I mean, the only thing that comes to mind is the boring answer is Star Wars, because that was that movie came out the same year that I did. Yeah, so that's probably the easy one. It's had more, middling results than great. I think that's the problem. When I was a kid, if you told me, oh, someday you're going to have so much Star Wars, you won't know what to deal with, or how to deal with it, as opposed to, 3 movies that came out 3 years apart, and then they were kind of done for 2 decades. But yeah, worst one, hands down, Rise of Skywalker. My God.
Ooh, nice.
Mm.
And what's your favorite?
It's weird. I'd probably have to go with A New Hope. Because
Nice.
I'm a big fan of. I'm a big Last Jedi defender, as many people know.
You and me against the internet, Ian.
Right, and here's the thing. I'm conflicted because I recognize everything that people hate about it. I'm like,
Mhm.
yeah, that doesn't quite work, but for somehow it all kind of works for me.
It does.
But Empire is largely regarded as like the best one. I've watched it a few times in the last recent years, and it's just kind of too episodic. I just like the fact that in A New Hope, everybody is pretty much together up until they get to the Death Star, and then they kind of separate out. But Empire is just like it's a collection of like little side quests that sort of come together at the end. Not to say it's not a great movie, but it's it's Star Wars New Hope is zippier.
Nice. New Hope.
I think I know why. It's because obviously one of the most biggest reveals in movies is we find out Darth Vader was as Luke's father.
Spoiler. No.
I mean, when you're sitting in the theater and you hear that, and obviously, and of course, in James Earl Jones's incredible voice, and it just hits you in the gut, because you never expected that at all. And I think that's the reason why people love The Empire Strikes Back as the best ones. Whether it's the original trilogy, the prequels, or even the what do you call it, the sequel trilogies?
Yeah.
Out of the whole Skywalker saga, people still will enjoy that just because of that revelation.
I gotta say, I wish I'd been a bit older when Star Wars came out or Empire, because I was like 2 or 3. Didn't keep my parents from taking me to see it in a theater. It was one of my vivid memories, right? But I don't feel like I was old enough to really appreciate to have that like kind of shock, because by the time I knew what had happened, I was already kind of older. Like, oh yeah, Darth Vader's Luke's dad. But I will say one of the worst low points, I think, of Star Wars was when they did the re-releases back in like 97.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
The special editions.
Oh,
because they didn't tamper with Empire too much. I think it got the least out of all the tinkering. But when the thing that they added, I'll never forgive Lucas for this. Luke gets his hand cut off, realizes Vader's his dad, and then he throws himself off the bridge in Bespin Tower, and they added a scream.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, that's not. He didn't slip. He wasn't like, oh no. He threw himself off that platform because he couldn't live with the fact that what he did. It's just like Han shooting first all over again.
Yeah, McClunky. They just keep messing with that seed, and you're just like, just leave it alone. It's like picking at a scab. You just making it work.
I guess that's why I have the advantage being a child from the 70s, and I was able to see Star Wars when it first came out to theaters, and then when the Empire Strikes Back, the sequel, everyone was just rushing to the theaters to see it because they wanted to get more of this incredible now a story that George Lucas created, and seeing the theaters and hearing Darth Vader say that they hear that and hear the whole audience gasp. It's just like in Carrie, when you're sitting in the movie theaters, and at the end of the theater you see Amy Irving's walking to Carrie's burnt out house, and then Carrie's hand pulls up, and the whatchamacallit, and the audience just freaks out. So I just got lucky to the bear witness of all that.
I just got goosebumps when you describing that last scene of Carrie, and I think I know what it is. It's you see the hand come up, but the music cue happens like a second after
later.
The hand comes up.
Yeah.
It's so jarring. Yeah,
I know.
That is one of the best jump scares I've seen for a while.
It was kind of one of the best jump scares I have seen, prior to Insidious.
We got a stuffed burrito with us. He says, "Happy 10-year, guys. Spoiling things all these years, but still keeping it fresh." That's right, sir. So glad you could join us, sir. We are very happy that you are with us here today. I appreciate that quite a lot. And Metallica is my life. I hope he's still around. They also asked again. They had another question. What's the worst theatrical experience you've ever had?
Oh boy.
Well, gee, yesterday, right? No.
No. I was in high school and we went to go see The Wiz. And
Oh.
unfortunately, somebody had the gall to sing all the damn songs right behind my ear.
Oh
Oh,
no!
oh man, no.
Not that I was a huge fan of The Wizard of Oz, and I get why they made The Wiz. You know, you get an entire African American cast, and I was interested to see how they want to do it. But the person singing every damn song I couldn't even enjoy the movie.
That's time for a mouthful of teeth. That would not stand.
Yeah. What about you, Ian?
It's I think it had to be going to the Music Box to see a midnight showing of Monty Python and the Holy Grail. This is about 15, maybe 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
We went with a friend of ours who had never seen the movie before, and it was in the smaller auditorium.
Sure.
So I don't know what I was expecting, but this person had never seen the Holy Grail. So like, let's go see it in the theater. Problem is, similar to your experience with The Wiz, everyone was just like nonstop shouting out all the lines, shouting lines before delivered, guffawing and laughing. Like you couldn't even like hear the movie. It was like, oh, I apologize profusely after. It's like, I'm so sorry. Just go home and rent it, and you'll have a much better experience. It's actually very funny.
And that's worse because there's some funny stuff that happens in that movie, and it's like to have them just ruin it just by, oh man.
Yeah, it was bad.
Yeah, that's bad. I don't know if I've had some really bad experiences. I've had some a couple of times going to a horror movie on a Friday night is always rough because you have teenagers in there now, and especially nowadays, and they're just on their phones and that. Not to sound like the old man, but it's true, and it's just bugging the hell out of me. I guess I guess worst experience was, I forgot which one it was. It was one of the Conjuring films. I think it might have been Conjuring 2 or whatnot. I went to go see it at the theater, and it was one of those packed houses, right? And I was sitting there, and this was actually kind of before the movie started, but even during the movie, a lot of people had their phones out and that. But before it, it was packed, and where I was sitting, there was 2 empty seats next to me, and it was like one of the last sections open, and there was 3 people that showed up, and they were looking. So me being a movie guy, respectable, I'm like, I saw there was a single seat near the back. I said, here, you can use these 3 seats if you want, and I'll move. And they're like, oh, thank you. And they started getting on their phones talking to someone. 5 minutes into the movie, those 3 people got up and left. I tell you.
Oh man! But were they in the wrong theater?
I don't know. Someone got a call or something and they left, but I don't even think it was an emergency. I think they just, I don't know, but it was just frustrating. I was like, here I am. It had a good spot, and then I gave it up so that they could have 3, and then they just left. I'm like, screw you guys.
Oh man!
I won't say it was worst, but the oddest experience was seeing X-Men 2 in the theater with my wife. At our theater at Rogers, the mega screen that they have, there's one section, it's right on the aisle, and most people don't sit there, but it's right, there's 2 sections. There's the ones that are really up front close to the screen that nobody sits at, and then there's the rest of the movie, and then you have the big aisle in the middle that people come up, walk past or whatnot to get to the seats. It's a wide aisle, but there's 3 seats set dead in the middle. So my wife and I, or our family, we usually sit in those 3 seats. Well, you might have some people pass it from you. They're great because there's nothing in front of you, right? Well, my wife and I sit down to watch X-Men 2, and this guy sits next to us. Okay, so there's 3 seats, so he just plops next to us, and we're like, oh
Nope.
You're like, okay. And he seems very excited and ready for X-Men, right? And he's making little noises of that because he's happy with all the stuff going on. Because X-Men 2 isn't, he's a big fan. You could tell, this guy is a fan. So then we get near the end, and yes, folks, spoiler room. And you get near the end, and you got the water scene with Jean, and she's holding the water back, and she saves the other X-Men, and then they wash over her, and then it resolves, and the music comes up, and as they go over the water, you see a slight silhouette of the Phoenix. dude next to us goes, "Oh, I bet you're gonna do Dark Phoenix," and he starts rocking in his chair, and he just repeated that like 4 times, like, "Oh, I bet you're doing," and he nudges me. He's like, "They're gonna do Dark Phoenix, Nick. Oh, they're."
Like, yeah, you're never gonna see it, buddy.
And Jill and I, we don't know much about X-Men. We just like the movies. So I'm just like, yeah, okay, yeah.
I would have done the same thing. I said, okay, yeah, nice. It's because my wife, obviously, if that would happen to us, I'm pretty sure Kelly would look at the guy like, I'm getting up and going.
Well, we were slowly putting our jackets on, going, yeah, Dark Phoenix. All right, yeah.
Oh boy.
Are you familiar with Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer?
Oh yeah. Oh,
you know that one? I saw that at a midnight movie. This was about 25 years ago, and it was kind of an empty theater. And I went with my friend, and there was a person sitting sort of kitty corner to us,
right?
And they were like leaning forward in their seat to the point where they were kind of resting on the seat in front of them, kind of like doing one of these, like looking up longingly at the movie the entire time. I'm like, we have to get the hell out of here as soon as the credits start.
yeah. He's really into this. I think we better go.
He's a little too into it.
Yeah.
And we also got Metallica. Is my life 213? He says, super random, but what is your hot food take that you have? We know what mine is. So I'm just nachos. I mean, nachos with the cheese, hot cheese nachos. That's my hot food, man. That's
but it's now I'm reading this as a hot food take, not a hot food take. So like, what's your hot take on a food? Like something that you're like controversial? I don't know. Am I reading this wrong?
I think that's what that means. I don't know. I'm not.
I was about to say hot food. I know. I'm not into spicy foods. No.
No, your hot food take, I think, is what food that you like, or what's a controversial food that you might like.
White Castle all the way. I can eat White Castle hamburgers and not have bowel problems. That's where I'm at.
Sushi would be for me. That would be my meat. Sushi, because I never thought I actually liked sushi, and when I finally had it, I said, "Wow, this is pretty good."
Mm-hmm.
There's a candy that they barely make anymore. There's only one candy factory in certain places. It's called, it's not a hot food, but it's my hot food take. It is candy raisins, they're called. People who have eaten them say they taste like soap. I love them. They taste delicious. I don't know what they're talking about. Candy raisins are a wonderful candy. Highly recommend those. So I love candy raisins. And then as a kid, when we had the hot lunches for public school, they used to give hot lunch. And there was mock chicken leg day. And no one seemed to like the mock chicken leg. I loved mock chicken legs, man. I would be the guy, they'd put it on my plate. They'd like pile it on my plate. Go, here you go, man. You can have my mock chicken leg.
Mark, what the hell is a mock chicken leg?
Yeah, what is that?
I'm not sure.
It's just what they fed to kids in public school.
But I think it's like a beef product that is ground beef type that is like breaded with and kind of molded into not even really a chicken leg. It's kind of an oval shape, sort of like a chicken leg. I don't know what was in it. I didn't ask what was in it.
So it's like a chicken fried steak nugget.
Kind of, yeah. Right. See, mock chicken drumsticks are made of boneless or ground pork and veal. So they were pork. It's ground pork shaped in So that was good. You put gravy on it with mashed potatoes. Oh my God, it was so good. Yeah. But everybody
does sound good. I would eat that right now. Seriously, that sounds really good.
All right, Mark. It's that time for me.
Oh, I know, Monty. No, I appreciate you stopping in, sir. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Congrats, Ian. It's nice to talk to you again.
Yeah, it's great seeing you again, man.
All right, All right, guys. Y'all take care. Stay safe out there.
You bet.
All right, you too, man.
There you go, folks. Horror Monty G. Check out his YouTube channel. He's got a great YouTube channel on there under that Horror Miser Monty G. And speaking of a great YouTube channel and streamer, we've got Stuffed Burrito here, who's been in our episodes many times. He was on the episode we did of Assault on Precinct 13. He was on that one, as well as many others. And he asked, do they have DNA tests in the Star Wars galaxy? They have that thing that they call metachlorians, but it makes you wonder, why not have a DNA test? They got all this other high-tech, stuff. Why not do a DNA test?
Somewhere along the line, we've got 3 new Star Wars movies coming out. They'll show up with a DNA test. Where else can they go?
Man, I still want my crime drama in the Star Wars universe, like a straight crime drama, like the detective shows. I think that would be kind of cool. We got it sort of with the last Mando episode. Which you can follow now on Ian's channel, where there's a streaming episode where he covers the episodes of Mando. Well,
thank you.
That Jack Black one. That was a crime. That was a crime investigation one.
But the guilty are still running free. Mark, I hate to do this because everyone's like jumping out, but I got
that's fine. Too. That's fine. It'll just be me. I don't mind being solo. That's fine.
Is that a Star Wars reference? Give it up, man.
No, I'm not solo. No, I was always partial to R2D2 myself. So
we're gonna have to get into that sometime. That's lay down on the couch and tell me your life story stuff. Right
tell my life story.
All right, man. Well, I just was able to pop in here for a few minutes.
That's cool.
I love streaming with you. I'm extremely honored that you have me back on your show every week to talk about movies. You really, I haven't been on board with you for 10 years or anything like that. But one of the things I love about Spoiler Room is you really help expand my horizons, and I think the horizons of other people by showing them many different kinds of movies, stuff that everyone's heard of, stuff that no one's heard of, everything in between. So thank you. You're doing great work. And 10 years, man. Your show is officially a decade old. That's cool.
It is. It's kind of hard to wrap my head around, but it is. So thank you, sir. I'm glad you're a part of the show. So take care.
All right, man. You take care and have fun answering all these great questions, man.
Oh,
I'll catch you later.
Yeah, you bet. Yeah, folks, if you're still out there watching this stream, I'm taking questions. So if you have any questions about the show or whatnot, love to hear it. And I realize I haven't given my favorite series. But before I do that, as you can tell, we've had a lot of people over the years be guests and sometimes recurring guests on the show. I know some shows keep a regular cast of hosts all the time, but I've always liked keeping the variety of hosts that we have and guests to come on, because you always get a mixed perspective. It always keeps it interesting rather than just listening to me babble by myself forever. And I've gotten to meet some people who really have become some great friends, like Stuffed Burrito and Ian and Monty and Mr. Derek Carey, who I met, at the first Horror Fest. Some of you have heard the story where I've met him and a few others at the pivotal Oshkosh Horror Film Festival many years ago, 11 years ago. So almost as long as we've been doing this podcast. Glenn Bittner, Mr. BFD, who was on just a little earlier, introduced me to the Oshkosh Horror Film Festival. It's so much spawned from that, including this podcast, really, from that and people on it that, it's like one of those fixed points in time, as the doctor would say. So my favorite series, I mean, Ian's right. It's hard to choose for me because I love a lot of cinema. I've watched many of them. You want a guilty pleasure series? Derek, I could hear Derek laughing now because whatever I get asked favorite, whatever, it's a very long answer. So I have a guilty pleasure series. That's the Fast and Furious films. Not great films by any means, but they are a guilty pleasure of mine, especially the later ones. I will say that they really peaked with 5 for Fast and Furious films. I really feel like 5 was that sweet spot of ridiculousness yet fun. And then after that, they jumped the moon literally with that last one where they made it into space because everything eventually has to go into space. Worst one of the Fast and Furious franchise for me would probably be after rewatching them 3. I just you can kind of tell they shoehorned it in of sorts into the Fast and Furious franchise. And it just threw things off. So it was kind of awkward. It wasn't a bad film, but it just, for me, 3, it just feels so out of place with the other films for sure. But Fast and Furious is my guilty series. Star Wars, people have mentioned here. Sure. The later films have been hit or miss for me. Star Wars was the first film I ever watched in the theater, 2.5 years old. So, written into my DNA. Stuffed Burrito mentioned DNA. Absolutely. Star Wars was written into my DNA because that was the very first movie I watched. And from there, it had been through my entire childhood. So, Star Wars always has a place in my heart. But, actually, really, if you want to get down to brass tacks, one of my very favorite series is Back to the Future. I know it's not a full, it's just a trilogy, but Back to the Future is so much fun, and it handles time travel probably in the most interesting way. I every one of those movies I really enjoy. Them taking it to a Western at the time, and just the spirit of it. Even when it gets dark, it doesn't get real dark. I mean, it gets dark, sure, in 2, but at the same time, it just has this spirit to it, this energy that runs through it. That I would say that's probably one of my favorite series is Back to the Future. I have many. Okay, I don't have just one. As my good friend who just joins us now, Doc, would say, don't ever ask Mark favorite anything. And I picked the subject too, thanks to Tanya Atomic's suggestion of favorite series, because I can't pick just a favorite one.
It's
And-
not just Batman then?
Well,
You've been talking
you're
about Batman for like an hour?
Well, no, I was talking about Back to the Future, actually one of my favorite series. Batman is another one, yes. But see, Batman has way too many bumps along the road to really say favorite series. There's films in the series I really enjoy. The overarching part of Batman for the series, maybe not so much. So
I mean, you can argue there are multiple Batman series too.
You
even
can,
from that
you can.
perspective. Just look with a lot of these.
You can, that's for sure. But Back to the Future, I just that really has a great spirit and it's a lot of fun. I'd pair that with the Indiana Jones trilogy. But again, they've got the bumpy, that mythical Crystal Skull film they keep talking about, but I don't know what film they're referring to. So.
I thought there was only 3 of those.
There is only 3 of those, but so I guess long story short, too late. I know. I don't have just one favorite series. Before we get to you, Doc, I got to throw in here Tiger Dude's with us. Tiger Power.
Oh, hey, Tiger Power.
Hey, he says, I'm sorry I'm not able to make it to the show, but just wanted a very special anniversary to you. Thank you for being an awesome friend. Tiger Power it is. Tiger Dude has been wonderful. His channel has really grown quite a bit and deservedly so. He's a great reviewer as well. Got his own thing going there, and it is going strong, and it's rocking. And he got a couple questions for us. So let's see what he's got, Doc. He's got, what's your favorite childhood memory at the movies? You go first, Doc.
Childhood. We didn't go to the movies that frequently when I was a youth. So they are a little few and far between. I do remember going to the drive-in once, and I do remember being sad because it was, you get 3 movies. I didn't know what they were. I just knew we were leaving after the one, and I'm like, we're all small children at that point. We're kind of half asleep and everything. Dad, why are we leaving? There's more movies. It's time to go. But in retrospect, not remembering what those other two, whatever movies were, they were probably not something we needed to stay for. Knowing how drive-in movies get programmed now more than I did as a 7-year-old or whatever it was. I think we went there for one of the Muppet movies, but I think it's where I saw the Muppet movie the first time, but I don't really remember what we saw anymore. It was that long ago. I'm sorry. Although I know we saw Roger Rabbit in the theater.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember, I think you might remember, there was a theater on Villard Avenue. I think it was just called the Villa.
Yeah, I remember the Villa. Yeah,
that's where I got to see Muppets Take Manhattan the first time.
Oh wow!
And just the enjoying it, and just the quiet, like as you're leaving, the Muppets kind of being that first stay for the credits thing for you, because you get Animal go, bye bye, go home, that sort of hasta la vista and stuff like and just kind of being so bemused by that as a kid. So I'd probably go with one of those.
Oh, favorite childhood memory. Well, I do remember one of my favorite, because I have a few. See, this is what happens. You ask me for one. I can't pick one. There is no one.
I don't have one either.
I don't have just one. Okay, so one of them was Roger Rabbit. Seeing Roger Rabbit in the theater, and with my grandfather, my late grandfather, and we got out of the theater and Die Hard was playing, and we had the refill tub. You know where I'm going with this. So Grandpa,
I got a feeling I do.
My grandpa, we came out of Roger Rabbit. This was at West Town. So we're going down the aisle where you're going. It was kind of easy to no, it wasn't. It was at Southridge. It was at Southridge or Southtown.
Southtown.
It was at Southtown Theater, because
Southtown, where we went to see Bordello of Blood that time. That one.
Yes.
Okay. Good.
Where they had a windowed wall and a long corridor, and all the theaters were on one side, and you had that window facing the road on the other. I remember.
Yeah.
So Roger Rabbit had been in the theater for like ever. So we had seen it. I seen it for like my 10th time, whatever it was. I saw it a dozen times in the theater. Anyway, so we came out of Roger Rabbit and we're walking down the aisle, and we look up at Die Hard, and it's starting soon. And we had the tub of popcorn and soda that we had demolished. So we went and got refills, and then we went into Die Hard with my grandpa.
Come on, kid, let's go to Die Hard.
We snuck into Die Hard. So I remember that quite vividly.
Not even went to, snuck into.
No, we snuck into. No, I'm fully admitting. No, we
statute of limitations is over.
That's right. Fine, I'll pay my $5 what it was back then for the admission you wanted.
You can go find where Southtown is now. I think you'll be okay.
So yeah, that's one of mine. The other one is just going to the drive-in theater in general. It was such an experience. You'd go, especially carload night, $15, you'd load the car up. We would pop a shitload of popcorn, put it in a paper bags, and have it in the back of my dad's Suburban, and we'd all load up into the Suburban with sleeping bags and that, and you'd get 3 movies, because if you went on like Friday or Saturday, you'd had 3 movies. And we'd go, and it'd get dusk. There was a playground in front of the screen with swings and mosquitoes. The mosquitoes were part of the ride. Okay, you could ride the mosquitoes if you got done tired of the swings, because they were so big in the long grass that never got cut. Never mind ticks. But anyway, and then you had, you had to tune in your radio or use the speaker box. But remember, for a while, they did away with speaker boxes. You had to tune your radio to a specific frequency.
Well, they lost too many speaker boxes.
Yeah, but I remember that, because if you drove past the movie theater and you knew what channel it was, you could hear the movie.
Oh, I forgot about that.
You could hear the movie if you remembered what channel it was. So, yeah, so drive-in movies in general, I would say, for sure. And Yeah, and then Tiger Dude's got a second question. He can't be here too long, but what are the most underrated movies of the 2010s, in my opinion? Oh, that's a tough one because there have been a lot of interesting ones, a lot of fun ones. I will stand by my defense of Mother. Uh, with Jennifer Lawrence. I know that was in the YouTube reviewiverse probably one of the most hated and reviled movies out there. But me personally, I think there's a lot there in Mother that I think it got overlooked quite a bit with that film. And some people got it. So a number of people, like artistic friends that I knew, really got the movie. But then there were so many people that you mentioned Mother, and in fact, I think I was on a podcast with Tiger Dude. They were talking about movies, and I was like the oldest guy there, which I didn't mind, but I was the oldest guy there when I said I saw Empire Strikes Back in the movie theater. Everyone's like, "Wow, what was that like?" Like I was some old sage that they'd climbed up the mountain to talk to. I loved it. It was great. They were a great group of folks. I felt very honored to be with them. But when I said my favorite movie of the year was Mother, it was like crickets. It was it was like they were like I don't know how to respond to that. so I really dig Mother quite a bit. I think that's a bit misunderstood. It's supposed to be controversial, but yeah, that is one of the films that I think is a little underrated and could be talked about more. I'm trying to remember other films because so many films have come out over the years.
That's what I'm trying to think of too now.
It's been tough. The other one I will always defend is Last Jedi. I think that's a bit underrated for especially the sequel trilogy. Even if you didn't quite care for it, they were trying to take the series in a new direction, and unfortunately the internet spoke up louder and they fell back on it. And so I think too there's a lot of interesting stuff that was done in The Last Jedi that while that film may not have been great for people, I think it would have been a great springboard for some interesting concepts and ideas that would take the series in a new direction that it needed to. And then they came out with that thing, as Ian said, his worst in his favorite series, which was the Star Wars series, which is the Rise of Skywalker. They came out with that, which was interesting. That was an interesting film. But I guess that'd be a couple of my underrated 2010s films. You got any, Doc, that you could remember?
Just skimming very quickly Wikipedia to see what came out.
What movies came out in 2010?
Starting there, yeah. It came up with The Wolfman.
Oh, yeah.
And to be honest, I remember, I haven't seen it since I saw it in the theater that I can recall. I remember walking out happy with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that that's not a very popular opinion. So I guess that qualifies really quickly.
That qualifies.
But having not having watched, I haven't watched it in forever, so I don't know if I would still look at it with that same eye. I liked what they basically, I think in some ways, it did the Universal reboot better than a lot of others. It told you the same story, but at the same time gave you enough twists in it where it wasn't exactly the same, but at its core, it still felt very much like a broody, black and white, where's Lon Chaney Jr. type film.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's perfect by any stretch.
No,
from what I remember, but I do remember going, I liked that. Let's get more like that. And everybody else went, no, let's not. And so we did.
Let's not get stuff like that. Yeah. That's just a few. I mean, there's been so many films released. It's really kind of tough to pick, some underrated ones because I can't remember what I did yesterday, but that's a couple of them. I would say.
I don't remember when things come out either, so it's just I just watch stuff sometimes.
Yeah,
and go, oh, okay.
That's the other thing is trying to remember when films came out, and some of them, even though they were released in a certain amount of time, they weren't necessarily, even though they were made during the 20, one time, they were made, released at another time. So it's,
Yeah.
but underrated films, I would say those two are a couple of mine, from the past decade, for sure. And then Tiger Dude asked what inspired me to start the spoiler room, and we kind of led with the story with this, but Tiger Dude wasn't here at the time, so I hope you don't mind a bit of the repeat, folks. But yeah, I was on a podcast. I was on a few podcasts. I got the bug, decided to try it, and yeah, Google Hangouts. Which, if anyone ever used Google Hangouts, that was a challenge in and of itself. It was a great free service. They were trying it at the time, the streaming, service, their own, and they've come back now, and they've got Google Meeting, which is the latest iteration of that. And that's just what it is. I was on a guest on some podcasts. I want to try it myself, and I will fully admit, Doc was there. He's one of the OG folks. I'm going to fully admit, I apologize, Doc. I have to apologize now.
Okay.
Because I was early in my podcasting, and there were a few episodes to where I'm like, my guests were beautiful and patient, but these episodes went way too long.
Probably.
I felt a little bad because just for that, going back and listening to them, I'm like, yeah, they went a bit too long. I should have, but I didn't know. I really didn't know, at the time, how to really podcast, because not saying I know anything from anything, because I will be the first to admit I know nothing. I know shit about absolutely nothing. Okay. But what I've discovered for my own right is that for podcasting, you do have to, kind of control the conversation, and it takes concentration, and it takes effort, and it takes learning how to do a conversation to where you can keep it natural, yet topical, especially if you're doing topic. If you're just sitting around and bullshitting, which there's plenty of those episodes, nothing wrong with that. But if you really want to talk about something, it takes a little bit. Well, I'm sure what you do in theater, with what you guys do for Boozy Bard. Shameless plug.
Trust me, I'm in prep for next month. I was watching one of our old shows the other day, and it was an early attempt for me to host. And I just sat there and went, oh, he's okay. So yes, I understand. I immediately flashed back to that, because that was a couple of days ago, and I'm like, oh, the energy wasn't quite. Yeah, I was doing something deliberately, but it wasn't quite working, and then it works, and so I've gotten much better at that now. Thank you. At least that's what the people claim. So I'll go with that.
That's what the people claim. But yeah, I would, but basically that's what maybe I just wanted to see if I could do it. In all honesty, I had been on some podcasts, enjoyed conversations, saying, "Hey, let's see where this goes," and here we are 10 years later, and I'm still around. We've got listeners. Not as many if I go by one algorithm, but plenty if I go by another algorithm. So I don't go by any algorithms, because I just do this because I enjoy getting together with friends and talking movies. That's basically what this is. Yeah, I was trying to look through really quick here a few other underrated films from 2010 decade, and actually one of them that came up was Real Steel, of all things.
Oh, yeah.
Real Steel with Hugh Jackman playing kind of a Rocky type of deal.
It's like Rock'em Sock'em Robots.
Yeah,
but
it was as close as you probably get to a Rock'em Sock'em Robots film. But that was one that I really enjoyed, and not just because Danny Elfman did the music for it, which I'm a big Danny Elfman stan, but I think that was underrated. I think people thought it was okay, whatever. But it's interesting because it was a story that it was a father son centric story spun in a fairly positive light, which is what you don't usually get in all honesty. I mean, let's face it, admit it, father daughter you'll get, or mother son, those usually get spun a little bit better than a father son relationship, so there's that. So I would say, I'd say Real Steel is probably one that is a bit underrated as well. And then, you've got so many films that came out, though. Cloud Atlas is another one. Cloud Atlas was a 3-hour film that people were going in not knowing what to make of it. And I remember one of the things with Cloud Atlas was it was a 3-hour movie. I came out of it. There was only me and like 8 other people in the theater, right? This was before 3-hour movies was an average.
Right. That's a fair point, Sam.
This was before 3-hour movies was like, oh, yeah, okay. So when at Call That, I remember having a conversation because I know it's a surprise that I just started up conversation with random strangers on a movie at the end. But we talked about how we enjoyed it, and critics were kind of panning it, and we're like, "What? We don't get what was wrong," because we all enjoyed it quite a bit. So Cloud Atlas was definitely a major undertaking for them, but I that's another one of those. So we got another question here from Old Man asking, biggest guilty pleasure. And what are the movies you really question why Hollywood greenlit those movies? Ooh, go ahead, Doc. You first.
Guilty pleasure is one of those weird terms because, especially for you and I,
our taste,
we live in a world where a lot of people go, "Oh, that's so bad." We're like, "Yeah, but that's one of our favorite films." So guilty pleasure is this weird vibe that I've tried to describe sometimes, and it can be a movie that you wouldn't expect somebody to like based on their other tastes that they also like, I suppose. But even that's kind of stretching it. Was it Scott?
Yeah.
Big Day. It was like there is no such thing as a guilty pleasure. You like a movie, you don't.
Scott. Yep. Yeah.
And I gotta, that's kind of where I land. Either you like it or you don't, really. And my tastes get kind of eclectic, so it's difficult for me to actually sit there and go, here's this thing that I like, or here's this thing I shouldn't like, as I'm sitting here trying to adjust Disney Vinymations on my desk. As for movies that you question why Hollywood greenlit them, that's like most of them. That's
yeah.
I say that to be kind of facetious, but at the same time, really, by and large, we've in the last 20 years, I'd say, especially, I think in the 90s, we talked about kind of the rise of indie film, on the screen, and then once you get past that period of time, indie kind of goes back underground to festivals and to DVD and to screeners and now streaming. Excuse me. So realistically, it's not that there isn't art necessarily in the films that we get from that mainstream, but it's kind of become the same thing that I feel has happened to some degree with music and some other forms of entertainment, where the goal is not to make turn out something that has a good has some faith behind it, or has some energy behind it from a creative standpoint. It's about making the thing that will make you all the money, not some of the money.
All of it.
Because if you make some of the money, then it's suddenly now a failure. So it's not enough to just make a profit anymore. It's all about like all in. And if you don't hit, we see that a little bit now with a lot of the because blockbuster season is like 75% of the year now.
Yeah.
And they go, well, if it didn't, this is projected to make X, billion, and if it makes, 3/4 of that, then it's the biggest failure in the world. And it's like, but why?
Yeah.
I honestly don't understand, but that's the trend in in that level. You see that, like, to go back to music, they're not. You could go back and see how the cycle used to be, that you would get somebody who gets like a 3 or a 5 album deal, and those first couple, if they didn't sell super well because that artist was kind of finding their footing, it was no big deal because they knew they'd make the money
Right.
eventually on, re-releasing them or
Mhm.
whatever like that. And now it's just like, well, if it's not going to sell X million copies of something, they don't want to even invest in it anymore. So that's my cranky old man rant about, no offense to old man, but it's not directed at you by any stretch, but it is kind of that annoying vibe where that's why we get kind of surprised again with Cocaine Bear. I think was the last time I talked to you, which is one of those movies where
Right.
we're like, why is this on a screen where I could watch it? I'm not complaining, I am just surprised because this is not what they've been doing of late.
And that's the thing, is this past year has been a really odd one, because don't get me wrong, I love the films that we've gotten a chance to see on the big screen. A lot of them are films that I would have never thought. Cocaine Bear is one of them, to where I never would have thought I would watch a film like that on the big screen. I figured it was direct to streaming. There's a few others too, like A24, pretty much anything A24 released last year.
I think Violent Night being the other one I think I talked to
Yeah.
most recently too. And is some of that just because we're kind of in that post COVID production bump where they have like slots available in theaters they have to fill?
We were in 2022. 2023, now you have the clout and everybody, it's like someone took their X-Lax and now Hollywood is just shitting out movies. Like just this past weekend, we had trivia and I didn't get a chance to see it. They came out, and granted, I know it's not bad, but still, two new movies in the theater: Pope's Exorcist and Renfield. And the week before that was Air, which I haven't had a chance to see yet. And this month alone, there's at least in this last 2 weeks are going to have 4 more new films at least probably released. And then get into May. Don't get me started with May, the sheer volume of films. And like you said, we don't have a single tentpole film anymore. You do not have that tentpole film anymore. Whereas back in my day, 1989, one of the reasons Batman, for a short amount of time before Home Alone beat it, fuck you, Home Alone, it was one of the top grossing films, right? Because there weren't many big films like that. There were some films, but none that were like big marketing behind it. There was 1 or 2 you'd get a summer. And that was it. And because you didn't have many screens, those films stayed there forever. I was looking it up. What the year I was born, Jaws. Jaws was the reason I was born. I'll explain sometime. If you follow the show, you know why.
I think I've heard it before.
But Jaws is the reason I was born. But that film, if you look at the box office, because of the screens, there was 1 week in like a 4 or 5 month stretch to where it wasn't number 1 at the box office. There was a couple weeks in there, but to the end of the year, it was still in theaters in like December, right? And it came out in July.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that gets lost sometimes. We forget, because it was common for a movie to stay in a theater for months, not necessarily in all the screens. But like, how long did Star Wars run? Star Wars was like in theaters for like a year or so, right?
Star Wars was in a theater for a year. And even when you get into the 80s, our time of going to movies as kids, you would get probably a month span at least, if not more, 2 months span, because it was just starting to ramp up the blockbusters and all of that series. But you'd still get if it was a good movie, it'd be there, I would say 2 to 3 months. But you're not done, folks, because then it would go to the second run theater, the budget cinema we used to have, where you could go for $3 all day, any showing. It was $3 and you could see a second run of the film that had been in the regular theater for 3 months. So, and nowadays, I guess to answer your question, guilty pleasures, I have to go way back. One of my guilty pleasures is Megaforce. Sorry, Megaforce. Guilty pleasure. That's a guilty pleasure right there, my friends. Brian Boswick. That film is I love that film because that film is the closest G.I. Joe film you will ever get. The G.I. Joe films don't come where near as close as Megaforce to a G.I. Joe film. Megaforce was literally an international organization that was not under any jurisdiction by one country that would go around the world to take out terrorist elements. That was Megaforce.
Yeah, that's pretty
They
Joe.
they had special vehicles. They had, you had international characters. It was the closest thing we ever actually got to a real G.I. Joe film. Okay, we covered it on episode 359 here. Go back and check that out. I finally got to talk about it because I love it. It's got like a 0 rating on IMDb. Okay, it's cheesy. There's bad effect. It's so much fun. I love that film. And the other one would be the 2 Alan Quartermain films, our guilty pleasure. Those are, Indiana Jones canons, Indiana Jones ripoffs. Straight up. There's no hiding what they were going for with that. But I love those films are just they're so much fun. Everybody looks like they're just having so much fun that it adds to the enjoyment of the movie. And as far as greenlit movies go, yeah, take your pick of any legacy sequel they come up with. I'm sorry. As much as I enjoy seeing the properties that I love come back and maybe renewing interest for some people, how they're handling the majority of those legacy properties is just to get to the money. Is really all to play off the fans. Yeah. And it's sad. I mean, the biggest guilty one of all is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre series. That is such a mess of a series. I wonder why they came up with some of them. Well, I know why, because money, and they know horror fans are suckers and will go see anything. But those films, the Chips movie. Okay, the Chips movie, which I know is Tiger Dude's favorite film. No, it's not. If I remember correctly, Tiger Dude did not like the Chips film. The Chips movie was one of those where it was the TV version, the movie version of the TV, and but it was way too late. It came out, I think within the last 10 or 10 years, I think, or something. But it was way late past that TV movie trend we had in the 90s.
Yeah.
You know which one I'm talking about. The
Starsky and Hutch, where it was the only joke in the film was people dressed funny in the 70s.
Yeah, 2017. Wow,
I was just looking myself. Yeah,
was Chips.
Yeah,
and it was not good. And
it was the 21 Jump Street brief series too.
That was around
the
same
little
time,
bit, right?
Yeah, a little bit around that same time. Though that one was a little bit funnier. Those were more entertaining. They did those right. So, but more like often than not, they're misses. There's a lot of stuff. I would rather have you, and the studios aren't now that you've got this clout, like I mentioned, but in 2022, studios took a risk, and look what happened. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once won Best Picture. I know it's still like a $14 or $24 million budget or under that. So some people don't consider it indie, but within Hollywood parameters for big wide releases, it was an indie for it. And look what happened. You got films like that. A24 released so much last year that I just loved almost everything except Bodies for my personal taste. I just didn't care for that film. But the other ones that came out are stuff that I'm watching on screen going, I can't believe this is out. This is wonderful. And then you get another legacy sequel. You get Halloween Kills, or you get Halloween Ends, or you get, and you're just like, why? Those stories ended. They finished them. They're good, done. You don't need to continue them. If you do, play in that world with new characters. Which some of these worlds you can, but yeah, it's sad to see what they're greenlighting and what they aren't. They're doing the Exorcist series now, and I'm like, why? There's nothing in the first Exorcist that goes, wow, this would make a great TV show. No, no. It- no, there shouldn't have been sequels to the Exorcist movies.
No.
But Hollywood's got to milk that cow, and
there's a safety comfort in something that you're already familiar with, and they know that, and the audience is there for that.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't blame them because it's considered safe money.
Well, I mean, and the audiences are to blame. We're to blame. Us moviegoers are partially to contribute to the fact that they still can crank out these IPs that should have just stayed in the archive many years ago, because they know they're going to get our butts in the seat. That's why I say horror fans, we're our own worst enemies when it comes to films, for the sheer volume's sake of, it's a wide release horror film. We're going to go see it. Man, this is crap. Too late. They got our money.
Yeah.
And they make their budget back because the horror films are cheap to make. And they know they're going to get our butts in the seat, because you might get the one gem that,
That's it exactly. You could, especially if it is one of those series that's been kind of flaky or a little up and down. You're hoping for that one, even if it's the last one. This is the last one. They're going to put everything into this one, and it'll be. Yeah. I have to go check that one out. So I get it. I'm not gonna, but yeah, it's a thing.
Texas Chainsaw 3D. Texas Chainsaw. They didn't call it Massacre. Texas Chainsaw 3D. Pissed me off when I left the theater, but they already had my money, so it didn't matter. They promised us Texas Chainsaw fans, we're going back to the Sawyer house. We're going to have the original Sawyer family. They're going to feature what happened after she left. All right. All of us fans got there, and we go, where did all these family members come from? How long did it take to get? What the fuck is going on? And then do your thing, cuz. Oh my God.
Right.
Well, and then it's a PG-13 film. Well, it's still R, but it's R light, I will say. It had the gore, which was cheesy CGI
it's probably
gore.
More gore than the original had.
But yet Alexandria Daddario's shirt was glued permanently to to make sure that nothing was shown. Not saying you need to. I'm just saying the way the scene plays out, you're like, that shirt is staying in place. That chainsaw's right there, and it's not gonna move. And so it's one of those things where if you're gonna bring back something, do it right. Everybody wonders why these live action Disneys are there. You're a big Disney guy.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
I don't. That doesn't mean I agree with everything, but yes,
I was gonna say. Well, no, I mean, you're a big Disney guy. Is that you're into it? You are probably the most biggest aficionado I know on Disney, and I love your knowledge of it. But yeah, you just said it. You admit some of these live action properties, you're like, why?
And the one that I joke about first is that, we're doing this live action series and everything. Okay, yeah, and I have not seen all of them. I will say I have only seen a few of them. The ones I've seen, I did enjoy, because of the way they either took a different perspective on what you expect, or just kind of filled in some of the storyline and everything like that.
Sure.
We're doing live action. We're doing a live action Lion King. I went, no, that's just 3D.
Just 3D CGI.
No,
that's not a live action.
That's still an animated film.
Jungle Book at least had a few human characters in it, okay, with mostly CGI.
That's still pushing it a little bit, but I'm like, it's still a cartoon. It's just a different style cartoon. It's fine. Yeah. But like, I really liked how they, like, I've seen the first Maleficent, not the second one, but the way that they
I love
basically the way they said, you've seen the fairy tale, here's the real story. Big air quotes if you're just listening. And I'm like, no, that's a really good way to do it. So it's like you still have kind of the way it plays out, but you get a different perspective on what it would have been. It's like it's like listening to a story about George Washington as we were kids, and then go, well, here's what actually happened. That's just a myth that they made up at some point in the 1800s or something like that.
So you could get the construction paper out on President's Day and build something.
Yeah. Sure, that's a good reason. Yeah,
that's a good reason. No, you're right. I mean, some of the live action, like my Jill and I really enjoy Cinderella. We went to see that.
That was one of the other ones that I've seen too, and I that was another one where I'm like, it gave you so much backstory on that character, and I really enjoyed that. Yeah,
Cinderella, but that's Kenneth Branagh. That he's a decent director for sure, and he handled it well, and we loved that one.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite ones that they did.
Did not expect to really. I was just like, we were going to see it just to see it. And I'm like, it'll be fine. And I went, I really liked that. What happened?
What happened? That was really enjoyable,
Yeah.
But most of them, folks, they're coming out with them because if you haven't gathered, Hollywood's celebrating 100 years for some of these studios. And the House of Mouse, if any of you out there who do YouTube complain about copyright infringement, you can blame the House of Mouse for the copyright infringement laws the way they are, because Walt wanted to protect his mouse, and that's why. But
I think I don't know for true. This is I get the impression that because Walt went when he went, the Disney company for like the next 10, 15 years were still operating in what would Walt have done and guessing rather than moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
And I have this feeling that a lot of that came from the Oswald situation.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that was the precedent that they could look at and go, well, Walt was really bummed out. That's where we get Mickey from, is because he didn't have the rights to a character he thought he had to.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to keep this because that's what he would have wanted. And it's like, well, we don't really know what he would have wanted. He died in 1966, 67, somewhere in there.
But what you're running into now with Hollywood and why they're kind of scrambling is because they're celebrating 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
So some of these properties like Winnie the Pooh, even the literature version goes into public domain. So Disney's like, well, crap, but we've got this image. So as long as you don't put the vest on your Pooh, that's how you get your Winnie the Pooh horror movie. But now you're getting other horror movies coming out now. Bambi. They're going to do a Bambi, I think. They're going to do, there's people talking about, horror versions of some of these classic tales because they've gone into public domain now. Not the Disney version, the literary, the books version.
Because Bambi was a relatively recent film when they made.
Right.
If you look at like some of the stuff that Uncle Walt was doing like back in the day, that was like the newest book. But Snow White, old fairy tale that's been around for a couple hundred years,
But the problem,
so third or fourth movie is that there's Pinocchio, which was a couple hundred years old, I think, at that point.
Right.
Like the next, like near, I think, is Peter Pan.
Yeah,
that was like only 30, 40 years old by the time they made it in 51. Because even Alice in Wonderland's about 55. Alice in Wonderland's 50. I'm pulling numbers out of the top of my head. So if I'm wrong, if you're yelling at me right now, feel free. I'm not guaranteeing I have these right.
But what's your?
I've almost won Disney trivia before. With a team.
You have, just you're a team of one. But
no, there was three of us.
Oh, there were three.
There were three of us. Yes,
that's not fair.
We lost by 1 point to a team that had like 9 people.
Oh well, there you go.
So that's how that went.
It took 9 people to defeat you.
It took 9 people. It took 3 times as many people to defeat us by a point.
There you go. Look at it that way.
That's how whatever I am. Yeah.
But now you have these properties that are literary properties that are going into public domain that Disney based movies off of back then. So now they're kind of in a conundrum because now it's like, you're like, well, this is our property. They're like, yeah, but we're basing it off the book, not your, it just happens to be Bambi, but we're doing it off the book, not the, And that's what you run into sometimes with some of these film adaptations too. People are like, oh, they're remaking the film. And you're like, well, they're basing it off the book that the other film was based off of. Like True Grit. People are like, oh, this is a remake of John Wayne's True Grit. And they're like, this actually was based off of the book. Very similar, but still,
It's like in the 90s when we got Bram Stoker's Dracula. They were trying to hew back more to the book than the play that I think the Bela Lugosi version is based on, or even the Boris Karloff Frankenstein is based on like a stage play.
Oh man,
some of the early Sherlock Holmes movies I think are more based on a stage play. Yeah, they even brought that actor in to do the first film, if I remember. I can't think of his name. Arthur Wantley, maybe.
No,
something like that. So there is that history even within film of not going back to the original literary work, but
Right.
another version that came out of that.
Mhm.
Because even some of those people were still alive at that point.
Yeah.
I think Bram Stoker had maybe just. Here I am trying to pull history out of my brain again, folks. I'm so sorry, because Arthur Conan Doyle was still alive when they were still starting to make these films.
Sure.
I think
Yeah.
Bram Stoker was either still around or had just passed when they
Mhm.
made the Bela Lugosi Dracula, because I tell a lie, because it was his estate
Mhm.
that fought against Nosferatu.
Oh, okay.
Because Nosferatu was considered to be an unlicensed version of a copyrighted work at that point.
Oh.
And it was the legally it should not exist right now based on the court. The court decision was they have to go and destroy all of them.
Yeah, right.
Clearly that did not happen.
That did not happen.
Because I saw that in middle school. No, the high school. Anyway,
Yeah.
but yes, Nosferatu is everywhere in the public domain now. It's great. But
You know what movie I wouldn't mind them trying to do a remake of? I know remakes are you would Metropolis.
that could, it depends. This was popped into my head earlier, and it wasn't a good part to fit it in. But I was the one wrestling news guys that I watch, also the
Mhm.
one fella does movie review stuff and has actually written a book about video game adaptations to film. So Luke Owen recently, when I was listening, he goes, 2 of my favorite movies are The Thing and The Fly, the 80s
Mhm.
versions,
Right,
which are
yeah.
both remakes.
Mhm.
He goes, so I can't condemn. I don't remaking a film is not a bad idea, but both of those had something different to say based on when they were made
Right.
than the originals were.
Mhm.
So it's not like they're just trotting out all the final girls that are still alive from the Friday the 13th movie to do another movie just so you can see those actresses again.
Right.
They had something to say. So it's not like you can't do it. But if you've got a reason or a different take on it, it would be kind of like, what was the one I was thinking of? They Live. It's like,
yeah.
arguably you can remake They Live. As much as I like Roddy Piper and all that, the insanity of that film, it's still very topical.
It is. It is
But
very
how
topical.
do you twist that in a social media type situation,
Right.
environment? And that would have to be your take, as opposed to just, well, Roddy Piper was in the original, so we have to put Dwayne Johnson in here, so we have a wrestler that can talk. Because that's not going to do it. That's going to feel just like, no offense to dude, but I think we're finding out he's not that deep an actor.
What?
He's an action star, but not a deep actor. Maybe. No offense to Dwayne Johnson, and Dave Bautista's kind of taken that position as the wrestler actor.
Dave's got chops though.
Yeah,
Dave plays a bit of different characters. It's fun to see him take on slightly different characters. Especially trying to avoid being pigeonholed into another Drax character. He's done, he's one of my favorite parts of Blade Runner 2049 was that whole section. I mean, it's like he's got the chops there, whereas Dwayne, if he picks the right part, he's good. He's good at the comedy parts. Stick to the comedy parts. I like the adventure stuff like Jungle Cruise. I love the Jumanji character. He's got the thing with Dwayne is, and don't get me wrong, I enjoyed Black Adam quite a bit.
Sure.
But then we discovered he went about that all wrong. You don't go around the Hollywood system and try to screw some people to try to get your project through, because as he learned, it'll come and bite you on the ass later on. Hollywood is its own beast, and you have proper channels you have to go through. Otherwise, you end up getting blacklisted. And we've seen that happen to many different artists who end up not working for a really long time because they spoke around a producer to another producer to try to get their project made. And like
people don't talk to each other.
Yeah, right. But for him, it's just, but They Live would definitely be topical, and it'd be interesting to see who to cast. I wouldn't want a wrestler
I'm not
necessarily
saying
in
that this
that.
is what we should do,
No,
but it was like one of those first
Mhm.
things like that where I'm like, yeah, there's a
but I mean,
there's
even Metropolis is
yeah,
still topical because it's about class warfare is what
right.
it's about, which is still a hot topic today.
Also true.
You know, and that's a film that really hasn't been touched. Sure, there's been variations, but an actual like Metropolis remake,
Right.
no one has done. And that's the thing is you get other things to where they've been made, like A Star is Born, like 5 times it's been made.
It's
But
been 25 years. We have to make A Star is Born again.
Is Chris Christopherson still alive? Maybe we could get him for a cameo.
Right.
No, you know, but
Where's Jolson? Bring me
But-
Jolson.
but again, and we were talking about this earlier, I would love to see them. I brought up one of my favorite horror remakes, The Crazies. Do something like you do with The Crazy. You take a property that had a good idea and concept, but they just didn't have the budget or the means to do
Right.
what you could tell they were trying to do with it.
Yeah.
And they haven't had the means. Take that, like they're doing with Toxic Avenger, the long-awaited project of Toxic Avenger of them making that Lloyd's in on. I'm very curious to see what they do with that.
Yeah.
You know, take something that's got a great concept and even a great cult following, but just didn't have the budget or the right elements. Get some talent, more talent behind it, and retool it. You know, to be something slightly different, but still give it an upgrade. Give it, you know, proper props instead of remaking a large, you know, no offense, but instead of doing another Spider-Man film
Sure.
or even another Batman film where, oh, look, this person died again.
Right.
Oh boy.
No, as much as I enjoy some of those, it's there. We are to a point now where it's like you can, apart from going, well, this actor is in this condition and we need to make as many, you know,
Yeah.
live action films before they get too old or too whatever, you know.
Right. That I
Yeah,
can see, but-
beyond that, it's like, yeah, that's what else are we gonna do? I understand that I have a big couple of a whole bunch of boxes back there that are all filled with Spider-Man comics that you could consider as plots for these films, and that's what they do. But at the same time, it's like, I mean, we've got, you know, and we did leave, you know, Tom's Spider-Man in a good spot to launch off into something completely different finally. now.
Sure.
But at the same time, it's not the worst ending either. You know, he's just
No,
off on
it's
his
not.
own. But so you got options. But
Mhm.
yeah,
It's
there's so many of these where it's just like we can do another one, or you can just have that character show up occasionally. It'll still be just as fine. We don't necessarily need a whole film dedicated to whatever.
Well, especially with stuff like that, DC and Marvel, I will say for both of them, yes, I'm saying they're both the same in that there's a deep pool of characters to draw from, and they continually draw from the same one, both Marvel and DC. While Marvel may have more characters, if you look at it, they're still drawing from the same pool of characters 99% of the time.
Yeah.
You know,
They cranked a lot out with that first wave of
yeah.
heroes, definitely, where it's just like, even if it's a subplot in a film that they're not in, there's, you know,
Well,
what
and those
else
characters are
here?
still coming up now, though. It's like, you know, 10, boom, done, end game. The thing was literally called End Game, and yet we have a continuation of many of these characters into the
Yeah.
next phases. And I'm like, you even set up like a new Avengers with, you got the Vision and all of them, you know, you get that
Yeah.
final shot where, Avengers, oh, and then they cut to credits at Endgame, and you're like, all right, a new Young Avengers, and then where'd they
Yeah.
go?
and that was kind of the weird complaint that some folks had about this. Was it Phase 4?
4, yeah.
Where they're like, oh, there's no real theme. There's, you know, it's all the like the building blocks they were expecting to like see like right away again. It felt
Mhm.
like here's how they did Phase 1. This Phase 4 will be like Phase 1. And it's like, it's just introducing a lot of characters. Let's see where they go
Yeah.
with these. You know, it doesn't have to be this master plan, because
Well,
they'll tease us into what that next master plan is. You can't just, let's enjoy a couple of miniseries here, please. Yeah. little 4 or 5 part storylines, within a comic,
You want
nice,
to talk?
nice thin trade paperback, be
You
fine.
want to talk about guilty pleasure? I like She-Hulk. There you go. Okay, so
I don't see why that has to be guilt. I didn't watch it yet, but the comics are always fun, so I had a good vibe out of how that was going to turn out.
But so I think we're going to end our 10th anniversary episode here. We've gone,
I didn't know what time it was. Sorry.
We've got about 2 hours here. You
talking
and I
with Mark just flies by. We're really good at this now.
Folks will know from I think it was the 300 episode, you and I have our own hour dedicated where it's just you and I talking. Because folks, Doc, I've known for many decades.
I didn't even get to talk about my favorite movie series yet.
Oh, well, no, you know what? Fuck it. It's
just real quick. I'll do
this.
No,
real quick. No,
because I was gonna build a whole joke about like all the different series that I kind of like, but I'll just cut to the chase and not go through all those. It's probably the Herschel Gordon Lewis film cycle.
Oh,
from a movie by movie as good or as they're all fun except for that one, which is boring. The Dracula film.
Yes,
the Dracula's film is slow. The rest of them are just on point. That was the G-rated one he made for TV apparently or something. But all the rest of them are just goofy,
2000 Maniacs,
crazy. 2000 Maniacs, Gore Girls, Wizard of Gore, Blood Feast, obviously, because you can't stop quoting Blood Feast, man, can you?
No, you can't.
Color Me Blood Red, the hillbilly, moonshine films and all that, It's just they're gonzo, crazy, goofy fun.
Made during a time when they were making films to make films and fill the grindhouse theaters and just get the
drive-ins.
The drive-ins just to put something on the screen.
Movies made to not be watched.
Yeah.
Let's be fair.
Let's be fair. They were released as the second feature or third at the drive-in at the theaters. That's why they're B movies.
They were makeout movies.
Yeah, it's like, the girl doesn't, the girl or the guy doesn't want to look at that. So okay, let's make out.
Oh no, are you scared here? Come a little closer, dear.
Yeah.
I'll comfort you. It'll be
fine.
Are
you scared there when they cut off that woman's nipple and poured that into a
gruesome twosome where the first 10 minutes is two dummies talking? just styrofoam heads having a conversation to fill time, so be feature length. That's why I like them. This is fun.
They're fun because the thing is, people I think don't realize, especially like Gershon, he knew what he was making. Him and Friedman, they knew it was Friedman, right?
David Friedman.
They knew what they were making.
They were making money. That's what they were making. They were making money when they were driving around and shaking down those drive-in dudes and make sure they got their cash, man.
There was no glass-eyed, we're making Hollywood cinema here. No, they're making dirt to make money.
They found an opportunity and took it.
That's right. So that's a good series. Yeah, especially 2000 Maniacs. We covered that on our show here. That was a lot of fun.
It's such a jump up from what Blood Feast was, man.
Oh, it is. It
feels like a real film.
It does feel like a real film quite a bit. And that was episode 378 that we covered that one in. So
got a spreadsheet open, boss?
No, I got my history page here. On specialmarkproductions.com. Pardon my shill, it's showing, but there's an archive where you can go through. We have all the episodes there through episode 15. The ones that were done through Hangout were a little bit rougher to try to make audio only versions of, but there are links for those first 15 that we did that you can watch the video of. But audio only versions, it starts from number 15 to we just finished up number 432. So we're at 432 now, and we are at 10 years. And thank you, Doc, for being with me, not just for so many years and not running away screaming, but also being a part of the show, especially in its early years. I appreciate that. And thank you to all the listeners. We're going to end it now, because otherwise Doc and I could sit all night and talk movies, and we're not kidding. We're not kidding.
Yeah.
So I thank all my listeners out there, folks who have supported us through the years, downloaded us and whatnot. I know there's more of you out there than what the algorithm says, but I don't do it for that. I do it because I love talking movies with my friends, and I hope you've enjoyed listening to us talk about movies with our friends for 10 years, because we're not going anywhere. We're going to be around for quite some time. Unless my wife says, okay, you can't do that anymore, then that might stop the show. But I don't think she'll do that. So you're stuck with me out here, folks, into the interwebs with a wonderful group of people who know far more than I do. And I'm very privileged to have folks like Doc on the show. And now I'm going to give Doc a chance to shill.
Oh,
Shill,
right.
Doc, please.
Yeah, last week you mentioned Boozy Bard before. I am now an associate producer for Boozy Bard Productions. We do primarily, our show is Shakespeare Raw. Once a month we do a Shakespearean play or something that at least has his name on it. In some cases, I'll explain in a minute. We take the script, we cut it down to about an hour and a half, hour and 3/4. Get that cast list as tight and snug as it can be. And then at the beginning of the show, the performers come out, pull a character name out of the hat, and go off and try and figure out what they're going to do for the next hour and a half. We are prepared, but we are unrehearsed. Last week we did King Lear. It went very well. We had some very powerful Lears. This coming month in May 8th, 9th, and 10th, that's a Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, we'll be doing, and this is why I said has his name on it, a selection from the Shakespearean Apocrypha, which means maybe he wrote some of it, or maybe just at some point somebody wrote, he's not here, I'll write his name on this. What's
he gonna do?
He's not here. He's he's on the other side of town. You'll never know. It's called The Birth of Merlin. Basically, that is the story. it's the beginnings of the King Arthur legend where Merlin gets born. It's not complicated. But yeah, these will be at the Best Place, which is not a braggadocious name. It's named after a former brewmaster back in the 1800s. Yes. So it's his last name. It is that's on 9th and Juno in Milwaukee. The doors officially open at 7. I say officially because people usually start showing up at 6:20, and the show starts at 7:30 with the characters being picked shortly thereafter.
Sweet. So yes, if you're in the Milwaukee area, check it out. You also have some performances on YouTube as well, don't you?
Yeah, find us on Facebook as Boozy Bard Productions. It'll also show you how to get in. Instead of at $10, at $5, it's dressed like magic. Please have clothes on, but at the same time, you've got a lot of opportunities to make choices when it comes to talk to somebody. Yeah, I think it's still Boozy Bard Productions on YouTube as well. We've got some earlier shows up. I'm actually going through our 2018 production of Birth of Merlin because no one else does this show. There's not a lot. If you tell people go watch a version of King Lear so you can be prepared for King Lear. That's not really an option for Birth of Merlin. So I'm trying to pick one of our shows to post. So we may get flooded with sudden views. All 3 people will come and go, Birth of Merlin. What the? So I got that going for me, which is
all
nice.
right. Which is nice. So thank you all very much for a wonderful 10 years. We've got a lot of great stuff coming up the last half of the year. I got some more interviews. I just posted an interview with Joe Kittner and Gato Sation, and their director and writers of Space Wars: Quest for the Deep Star. It's an indie film that is going to get select theaters, and then it's going to go to video in May, beginning of May. I just posted that interview. There was a lot of fun talking about 80s sci-fi influences and what they were going for, which is hilarious because I read a review about it that said, I don't know if they were intending this to be serious or not. And if you listen to the interview, you can tell that I got the gist of what they were doing. And it's not supposed to be like a serious sci-fi film. So that's a lot of fun interviews. I got another interview coming up with some Wisco horror fans. They made this wonderful, creepy supernatural film called The Head Mistress. It showed at the Twisted Dreams Fest last year when I got Vert, and he's upstairs right now. And yeah, I'm interviewing them. So that'll be dropping this week as well. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff coming up. We got all kinds of stuff. We're not going anywhere, folks. And I hope you don't go anywhere either, at least for an hour, or in this case, 2 hours for our episodes, and hope you've enjoyed them so far. We're always looking for suggestions. Always looking for suggestions. So just go to contact@specialmarkproductions.com. If you got an idea for a show or whatnot, I'm very open to suggestion, as Doc will fully fully attest to. So thank you, Tiger Dude, for showing up. Thank you, Steph Burrito, Old Man, Metallica, Is My Life 213, and of course, Horror My User Monty G, Ian, Andrew, everyone who showed up here. Thank you so much. And now, yes, we'll just say good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.